Welcome, everyone. My name is Caroline. I represent C2U Training Solutions, the official hosts of today's webinar. We host several of these throughout the year. We have various guest speakers that we engage with, but when it comes to the topic of AI, we tend to collaborate with Johan quite often, and then we always invite an additional guest, which today will be Amelia. So today we are covering the currency of business, which these days is data. But we're also talking about how AI is used in collaboration with data to improve decision making and also just progress in the world of business, because that's where we are today. Is businesses need to start using AI and their data to make decisions and move forward. And if you're not, hopefully this conversation can unlock some ideas for you. It can just make you think a little bit differently or make you consider some training solutions to get you to there. And that's why companies like us, C2U, host these sessions, because we want to encourage you to continue your learning journey, because if you don't, you do fall behind. So I think before we just jump into our conversation, for what it's worth, we do approach our sessions as panel discussions. We have open discussions about our topic on which we prepare. So we would like to encourage you to contribute to our discussion, as this really makes it more valuable if we can see what it is that you also want to learn. But I think before we jump into the content, Johan, I think let's start with you, just a basic introduction, and then Amelia, the same as well for you.
Caroline, it's so good to do this with you again. We've had several of these sessions and it's always fun and professional, and so happy to have Amelia with us. She's amazing. Really looking forward to her contribution. It's about 5 or 6 names in the attendees that I know, and I'm so glad they've made time. So welcome, everyone. Johan Steyn, I focus a lot of my work, it's all about AI, but on education from a tertiary point of view, but also educating organizations and leadership teams. A big part of my focus is as a father, and therefore about the ethics and the future of AI for our children and for South Africa in particular. So I'm very happy to be here, and hopefully will contribute things that will be beneficial to our audience.
Definitely. Amelia, over to you as well.
Absolutely. Good morning, colleagues. My name is Amelia Masubelele. I am so excited to be part of this webinar today. So I'm really, really delighted. So in terms of my background, I've got, I'm from information and technology. I've got a bit of LLB, and I'm also, I also have digital business experience as well. I currently work for City of Tshwane, public sector in the house, Caroline. So I'm really excited to contribute meaningfully as well to the discussions that we are going to be having today. I've also realized, Caroline and Johan, that I've realized really how important data is today, not just to AI, but overall to how cities function, to how decisions are made, and how we as the public and private sector leaders need to think differently about our future, especially where data is concerned. So I'm most certainly excited to be part of these discussions today. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for your introductions. If people are coming in late, obviously we're not going to backtrack on that. If you happen to fall out of the session, please feel free to jump back in again. But we're officially going to get started. So I think I kind of want to jump right into it. And Johan, I think I'm going to address this question directly to you more based on your experience as well. So if data is the new currency of businesses, why do you think so many businesses are still treating it like a nice to know, like, oh, there's a nice stats, instead of, you know, understanding the value of it and using it? Just as an example, I know many companies use, for instance, loyalty cards, and they use personalized promotions to ensure that product placement is properly optimized. I know that companies like Chicks and Pick n Pay do this quite well. And the rest of the companies that I notice is that they store their information passively without translating it into decisions. It's like, we need to show the world we're doing customer surveys, but beyond that, you know, we just leave it by the wayside. So for me, this shows a gap between data collection and data activation. So yeah, I'd just like to know what your take is on that.
Yeah, I think your comments and your observations are correct across many industries and businesses. Caroline, I think it starts with the art of the possible is not understood. with the amazing things we can do, obviously, as long as we do it legally and responsibly. But we've got so much data, whether it is back office operational data, but on our clients. Now, look, obviously, if you're a bank or a mobile phone provider or a retailer, like you've said, you've got a heck of a lot of data on your clients. If you're a mining company or engineering, which are some of our guests, it's maybe you have a lot of data, but on a smaller amount of entities. But if people understand what they can do with the data to get insights that humans are not able to see, and that for me is one of the great things about AI, if we do it correctly, it's seeing patterns that we can't see and answering questions we didn't even ask. But it comes back to a business strategy, and I'm sure we'll unpack that as we go. So the short answer for me, if it's short, is it's because people don't realize what a gold mine they're sitting on and what they can do with it. It's not a tick. It should not be a tick box. It is almost a business responsibility. And also, Akalin, I think it starts with the top leadership of the business who outsources it to the techies, and that's important, or to the vendors. But how do they align their board level business strategy to the data they have? And that's where there's a big mismatch in my experience.
Yeah, and so some of the, just for the audience, for what it's worth, an audit you can do is you can evaluate where do you collect data, and is that data actually being used, or is it just being collected so that you could tick a box, so that you could say, yes, we comply to doing these surveys, or we comply to getting this information from our audience, but is it being used, or is it lying dormant, so that we can say we have it, but there's no activation beyond that. So that is definitely a trend currently, is businesses are collecting data. The question is, what are they doing with that data? You'd be surprised how many businesses are actually using that information. And I think a company that we can all, praise in terms of that is how Checkers has expanded. Checkers has expanded quite immensely just from analyzing their data from their customers using their app, customers buying certain products, customers certain behaviors on the apps, and they constantly readjust the app's interface based on what customers are buying, and we're not seeing that as much from the other whole food sales companies. So it's interesting. It's a good starting point, is to evaluate the data you aren't using. Amelia, I'm sure you want to contribute to that.
No, absolutely, Caroline. And I've actually read somewhere where it said that 76% of organizations aim for data-driven decisions, yet it's only 67% of them who don't fully really trust the data that they use to make those particular decisions. And if I may also add that, from a public sector point of view, I think we somehow collect data because we are told to. Johan spoke about strategy, but not because we have a strategy for it. And I tell you, it's only now that as our organization only realized the currency that data is, where we are now starting to, there's always been a growing tension, in fact, between, the decision making and the trust in data that we have. So it is really, really very important for us to be able to critically close this gap. And I also notice in my organization, there's also a lot of silo mentality. We collect a whole lot of data where, each department wants to hold on to their data. And it makes it very difficult then to make informed decisions out of this currency that we are talking about. So really, in order for us to build effective AI, and this is not just about algorithms or patterns, it's fundamentally understanding your data within organizations, how you access it, how you even prepare it, and how you use it, to present the daunting challenges that organizations have. I just thought I should add that.
Absolutely. No, and that's a very valuable point. I think that leads me to my next kind of question / statement is how do you think can companies move beyond vanity metrics and start translating data into real measurable business value? In my personal capacity as a marketing manager, I've I used to focus mostly on typical things like your page views on your website and your social likes, how many people are liking your posts and how many people are commenting on something. And in the end, the more you start to deep dive, the more you start to realize some of your metrics are just, it's good to say and it sounds inflated, but does it truly translate to outcome? And so what I've started doing more is focusing on conversion rates and listening to user outcomes and focusing on the behavior of people, because that's something that's very hard to control. But you can actually start learning more about human behavior through data. And I think, Amelia, you'll have a lot of information on that, even just from your experience in your role. So that shift from vanity to very useful data has allowed me to optimize marketing strategies more effectively, because vanity metrics look good on paper, but is it truly linked to ROI linked metrics that can actually generate results? So perhaps if we can open up that conversation.
Is Amelia going to start? I think she should.
Okay, not a problem. And I think, Caroline, that's a very important point just in terms of vanity metrics. I think at this point, it's very important to understand that AI has kind of rewritten just the playbook from the traditional way of doing things, to hyper-personalization, as you have mentioned, rightfully mentioned, where analysis just goes beyond, the normal customer experience. So in the main, this hyper-personalization, it sort of defines how businesses interact with their customers. So there is power in hyper-personalization, wherein you start to see, I'm sure just in terms of what you've mentioned now, you've started to see how enhanced user engagement has been, and that just that competitive edge, the relevant experience that builds loyalty. And I think it's also important just to mention that there are some kind of trade-offs where hyper-personalization is concerned. There are some ethical concerns that needs to be taken into consideration. And also just the loss of discovery where predictive recommendations end up kind of boxing users. And also the scalability where hyper-personalization does not necessarily really fit into every customer segment. So it has indeed changed just the traditional ways. You are now looking at KPIs that are much more prevalent to how business is being conducted at the moment. So yeah, I think that's my input. I'm going to give over to Johan.
Look, in hyper-personalization, man, it's a big topic and it's so relevant. So I'm sure we'll unpack it more. It's very valuable, Amelia. Where I've seen the mismatch, guys, is we measure what's important to us as a business.
Yes.
But do we measure what's important to the customer? And we don't, because we don't always know what is important to them. I mean, how many times
Absolutely.
after a call with your mobile provider or your insurance provider or your satellite provider, did you not get a little WhatsApp or something that say rate our service, so 1 to 5, and it's so subjective. But I don't know about you, whenever I've given any service provider a really bad rating, there was never a follow-up, because what does 1 out of 5 mean? And the chatbots can do it these days with context. Why was I unhappy? Did it take too long? Was the agent not good enough? There could be various reasons. You could even just have caught me on a bad day and I'm just not in the mood to rate you. But and to your point, Carleen, is because now all that data is for a tick box. We've surveyed 1 million clients this month. So what? How does it change business strategy? But just to go back to my first statement is we don't know our clients. We don't always know what's important to them, and we don't measure what's important to them. We just measure what's important to us. And that's where I think the big mismatch is. If clients can honestly, and if it's a great chatbot with a conversational understanding, if they can be honest, and if we can filter all the catching people on bad days kind of comments, there are treasures there that should filter into a business strategy. The reason why I don't often do these surveys is because I know it doesn't matter. Nothing is going to happen if I had a bad experience. So I'm just not going to do it. The same applies for HR teams. How many times, and especially big corporates,
Yes.
have we not have surveys? and where you indicate, and they say it's anonymous, I don't always know if it is, but you indicate you're unhappy with your leadership or your line manager, nothing ever happens. People tend to just ignore it. It's a waste of our time. So I think it's that almost common sense thing. Are we measuring the right things for the right reasons, or do we just want to report to the board that we're doing it?
And I think, and this, I love this conversation, and this is directly to our audience. This is where AI comes in. The moment I started using AI to help me analyze my data, let's pretend case study or scenario based. I've got all the survey information from our students. It would have taken, without AI, days, weeks, months to go through all of it and figure out what the trends are. Because that's what's holding companies back from analyzing their surveys, is it takes too long and it's too difficult to quickly pinpoint a trend. And by the time you've pinpointed the trend, the next problems have already arisen and we've moved on. What AI has helped me do is the moment I started feeding my data into AI, being that Copilot, ChatGPT, whatever you're comfortable using, the moment you start feeding in those numbers and take out the names, just focus on the numbers, it can actually pick up those trends very quickly for you. It's surprising how you might think, oh, this is the trend, where maybe you just think that because you saw 3 of them say the same thing. But let's pretend there is 300 saying different things. What is the median trend? What is the 80%, 80-20 rule that comes out? And AI can give that to you within minutes, where previously it would take long. And I think what's happening is people who work with data in companies, especially like, for instance, in your more administrative roles, like your HR managers, etc., they're still scared of AI. They're still not properly trained or used to using AI. So they're not feeding the data into AI. They're not getting the responses fast. So they're not making changes based on the feedback they got. So I see Lindsay did say, I think surveying methods are outdated. I think how the data is used is outdated. Surveys do give very valuable information. It's how it's processed afterwards that's outdated. It's either left on the side so we can say we did it. It's analyzed maybe in a very superficial manner, and we take out the top 3 things that we think is important, again, and then nothing happens from there. And I think that's why we're talking about AI, is if people, imagine every single HR manager knew how to use ChatGPT or Copilot properly, they fed their data into there and they got an immediate response for their next strategy meeting that's taking place next week. Things will start happening faster. And I think that's what's not happening, is people are still too scared to use AI because they think it makes people, sorry to say, dumb. Unfortunately, that's not the case. What AI does is it helps you work faster. It helps you get answers more accurately because it focuses on numbers. Where I've seen AI be very useful and accurate is when you use numbers, because numbers don't lie. It's black or white. So yeah, I know this is a loaded topic, but yes, Johan, I was going to say.
Yes. No, look, just this topic is the next 4 hours if we can. Just while you were talking, what I was thinking is not only do we measure as a business what's important to us, but as an individual, I will measure what's important to me and to people like me. And I'm sure we're going to touch on biases as we go because it's important.
Yes.
But say, for instance, we want to do a survey on health within families. Is the family functioning, etc.? My view is family is like mine. There's a man, there's a woman, and there's a child. What about same-sex couples? What about single parents? What about people who cannot have kids or don't want to have kids? There's probably 12 iterations. And that's why I always say you need that multifunctional and disciplinary and multicultural team. Because my colleague must say, Johan, you're measuring families that's like yours. Or I'm measuring people whose finances are like mine. And that's where the measuring also stops. We create in our own image. And I always encourage my clients, make sure that your small core team is as diverse as possible. Because even if you mean it well, you will be biased and there will be things that you're not thinking about. So for instance, why are not all kids just going to school? Because some of them walk 20 kilometers to get there without eating in the morning. It's not part of my life. I would never even think of that metric. So I just want to encourage everyone on this topic, get perspectives outside of your world. Because
Yes.
otherwise we will only serve the people who look like us and who think like us and who are like us. And in this
Yes.
country, we can't do it.
And that's why you should be careful to analyze data just as you, the person. Using a tool, and I know we keep saying, but this is what the topic is about. Using a tool like AI, it's unbiased for the most part. Obviously, it gets fed with most information, but especially on a number basis, it will give you the trend as it is. And I've even seen you on beliefs are very hard to change. Beliefs are hard to change. If you have a certain belief, even if the facts are in front of you, you still will doubt it. And I think that's what's also happening in businesses. They have their beliefs, the data says otherwise, but and it will take a few times for the data to keep coming out the same way for them to realize, okay, maybe I need to shift my belief. And I think that's why I'm hoping in this call, there's a few decision makers here who are now thinking, gosh, I know we do a lot of surveys. I know we do a lot of analysis on our clients, our products, our services, but do we really know what's going on in that data? Or do we just focus on the same outcomes every single year because then we end up getting the same results every year? And that's how you know you're measuring vanity. If you get the same results or you have slight, maybe 5% increases, that means you're just focusing on the vanity and you're not diving deeper to make some drastic decisions or changes in your business. I want to give a quick example, just for what it's worth, on human behavior. Let's take this webinar, for example. And Johan, you've been with me in many of them. We've tested, if we promote a webinar for 2 months, the people who attend are the people who booked closer to the date. So what we started doing is we're promoting our webinars in shorter time frames. Fun fact, the outcome of today's webinar attendees, 67, that's 67% of our registrations. When we have a long lead time, we only get 40% of our registrations. And what did we start doing? We started looking at human behavior, not just what marketing says or what the internet says is typical of webinars. We started looking at human behavior, and guess what helped us do that? AI, because it analyzed our booking to attendance ratio for us much faster than we could do ourselves. So that's a very small example, but isn't that amazing?
Oh,
You can improve results just by something as small as that. Now put that on a larger scale.
can I quickly comment? But I'm also keen to hear what Amelia says, especially in public services space, Colleen. You've just touched on possibly one of the most important things of this whole conversation. We forget that we're dealing with people. And people, as wonderful as we are, because we do have potential for immense good, but we are also horribly selfish, scary beings. I mean, we're the only species on Earth that's actively destroying the environment we're living in. We're the only species on Earth that's murdering at mass, ethnic cleansing and the like. Animals don't do that. Okay, it's maybe extreme, but every person that you're targeting has got insecurities, have fears, have a past, have aspirations and dreams. And in our country, that's very varied because it's such a wide variety of people and backgrounds. I actually see many of my larger clients employing human behavioral scientists, psychologists, philosophers, and ethicists as part of their larger AI teams, but especially the human behavioral scientists, because that, if your target market is, for instance, rural teenagers, that behavior based on an experience and aspirations is different than high-income people buying at Woolies in Sandton, for instance. So I want to just encourage that, just to build on what you've said there, Colleen, is understand the psychology behind the human, and it's not just the algorithm. Now, Amelia, in the public sector, because I mean, you guys are serving all of us, hopefully. I live in Tshwane, so thank you for your hard work. But is that brought in, or, and I don't know if you can answer this, but or is the varied people living in Tshwane and how they differ part of the strategy and the understanding, do you think?
Thank you so much, Johan, for that particular question. I think what we are trying to do as an organization is try to bring the people into what we are trying to do. especially where AI is concerned, and some of the services that we provide, as the CT. And just going back a little bit again to vanity metrics. I mean, as the city, like Caroline has rightfully mentioned, we've really moved away from those vanity metrics that you are talking about, where we measure how many surveys have been completed. And it's actually funny because at the moment I'm currently busy with our smart city strategy survey, and this topic speaks to me because I've been checking quite consistently how many people are completing the survey, but it brings a different flavor to say, how do we look beyond just measuring that, the surveys, how many applications have been downloaded, the page views, etc. Because it's very important for us to realize the importance. And I mean, as the city, Johan, just your point, we are trying to tailor our solutions. Like, for instance, if you look at electricity, we now look beyond just the vanity metrics that Caroline was talking about. We are looking beyond how can we assist our residents in terms just to their saving tips where electricity is concerned, where their exact usage patterns are concerned, where we try to look at their lifestyle, we try to look at their locations, or a simple thing like when you look at transportation, we look at commuters, when a bus is delayed. So we are trying to look just beyond those vanity metrics and looking at something that really brings value into the business. We're trying to track metrics like your resolution time. We're just not checking how many customers have lost their complaints, but we look into issues of how many were repeat complaints within the same area. Hence, I spoke earlier on about location. We look at satisfaction feedback from our citizens. So yeah, it's very, very important. And I think as the organization, we are really not far off where we are trying to kind of, how do we start now integrating our data across the departments, and also looking at the AI models that can detect this kind of patterns that can assist us to make informed decisions. Thanks.
I see we actually do have a valuable statement or question in the chat. I'm quickly going to read it, and I think Johan and Amelia, any one of you can jump on this one. So Hendrik says, one of the main issues with surveying methods, I'm assuming you mean surveyor bias, is surveyor bias. This is especially true when looking at feedback and user experience surveys. So how can we use AI to reduce this bias or get users more involved in the feedback process?
No, I think it's a great point, and I just want to quickly scroll up. Let's see, who said surveying is no longer that relevant?
I think it was Lindsay, if I'm not mistaken.
Because there's a point there as well. I think correctly surveying is probably relevant, but Lindsay is not wrong, because as participants or receivers of surveys, we know that's why I said I'm not going to waste my time. I know nothing's going to happen. And also, you ask me the wrong questions. You don't ask me things that I care about. So, for instance, was your call answered within 30 seconds or 35 seconds? Does it really make a difference? I'm just glad my call was answered. So we've got people sitting siloed in the business, thinking out things, and it doesn't mean they're not doing good work, and it's not always relevant. But imagine a survey ends with saying, how valuable was the survey to you? Because that never happens. We just get the survey. But were we wasting your time? What questions do you think we should have asked? Imagine that valuable feedback. But I'm not sure, Hendrik must confirm, because he might mean survivor bias. But I think
that's my error. He did write survivor bias.
Yes, look, I think that's what he means. And it brings us back to psychology. And it's also, remember, some people are very agreeable, and this is where I love Jordan Peterson's work. I know not everyone loves him, but the percentage of women who are more agreeable is much higher than men. It has to do with motherhood in particular, a community, bringing the community together. But the percentage of women who would, for the sake of holding the peace, and this is blanket, this is not applied to every woman, would say positive things just to get through the survey and not to offend, is much higher than guys. Men will probably not do the survey, or just say what they want to say, and it's testosterone filled. So I think that survivor bias, and for the sake of just making sure you are happy, I just want to get through the survey, is applicable, because, and then the question is it even worth running that survey, because you're not getting the true data. And I think, and maybe just to latch back to your question, Colleen, if you, whether it's ChatGPT or other tools, if you give it the right context, this is my target market. This is, here's some results from previous surveys. Here's what we want to achieve. Here is the split between women and men and age group, etc. What, from a psychological trigger point of view, should we ask? Or something like that.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of value, and you have to refine it, but there's a lot of value in doing it.
I absolutely agree, Juan. And I think to our audience, if you're going to test that, don't just be satisfied with your AI's first response. I've seen a lot of people generate interview questions or surveys through AI, but then they're so excited because AI did it so fast, I'm just going to use the first batch I got. Definitely not. Analyze what it's giving you, and if you still don't see the depth, give it more context. You need to give it more context on what it is that you want to learn from your target audience. And I think, Amelia, this is where you guys probably have that information. You should know, where's your audience based? What are their general interests? What are they likely to like and not like? What are their typical struggles and complaints? I recently completed a course as well with a third party, and the questions I got were very, very basic. It just said, how satisfied are you with the content of the course? I mean, that is the most basic question you can ask me. Why not customize it more towards the content I've learned? Why not ask me which specific module did I struggle with most? Why not ask me which assessment gave me the most value? Make me answer very specific questions that will unlock some emotions as well, instead of just typical leading questions that will not, you know what those questions will just tell them? 5 out of 10 people completed the survey. Of the 5, 3 said they liked the course. What does that even mean? Hey, what does that even mean? So I think, Johan, I agree with you, is AI can actually help you come up with better questions. AI can help you formulate more psychological leading questions, but you have to prompt it properly. You have to give it enough context so that it gives you a proper structured question based on what you aim to achieve. I don't know, Amelia, if you want to add on to that.
I'm okay. I think you have covered that quite comprehensively yourself and Johan. Thank you, Carly.
Awesome. But yeah, Hendrik, thank you so much for the question. I think so. Our answer to your question is AI can be used, but it's also how you prompt it, and that's a whole nother level. That's a whole webinar that Johan's done in Feb, I think, because we did it on prompting. How do you properly talk to AI so it gives you better answers? Because there's still so many people who just type in the first thing they think, and what AI gives, they go, oh, is this how this works? It's not that great. Remember, it's how you feed it that makes a big difference. So I would definitely encourage you to test this out. And the more you speak to your AI tool, the more it will get to know what your needs are as well. So that's another piece of advice. And then Lindsay, and I think we can. I like the survey conversation because it has a lot to do with data. So Lindsay says survey fatigues may discourage businesses from getting deeper insights. Customers are surveyed left, right, and center. And you're right, Lindsay, it's because people don't trust surveys. They don't trust that the information they are sharing will lead to a better outcome. And I think a company that's experiencing this right now, and I hope there's no employees here, but is Woolworths. Woolworths is slowly but surely starting to receive comments of decrease in quality. And the question that a lot of people are asking on social media is, are you not listening to your customers? Why aren't you listening to your customers? I've recently completed a Woolworths survey, and I've wondered, are they actually going to really pay attention to this, or are they just going to give me that 1 out of a million reward because they needed something to lure me to complete it? So, yeah, and I think it's going to be a while. There's going to be a long time of survey fatigue unless businesses start using the data differently.
And also what Lindsay said to Amelia is the work you're doing is encouraging. And just quickly on that, look, for me, living in the city of Tshwane, if I think of my local municipality, if I think of Tshwane, if I think of our national government, most of us rightfully complain and think there's not a lot happening. But there are pockets, many pockets and people I deal with on a government level who are exceptionally smart and who are doing incredible work. And we know that the good news is never published. It's all the bad news. And there's a lot of bad news, but there are things happening. We don't always see it. I mean, the corruption, all the other stuff is so huge that it's almost, the sun doesn't even shine through the dark cloud. But people like Amelia and others across government and even some of the entities working with government are doing great work. We just don't know about it. I mean, I was at, and I think I can say this publicly, last week I did a talk with CETA, with their career day. There were 3,000 CETA employees in the massive hall here. And I mean, CETA is bombarded with bad news. I mean, corrupt and shocking stuff. But I met a lot of people there who are some of the smartest people. They're working hard. They're trying to do well. But they're under this cloud of, you almost don't want to tell people at a braai you work for CETA because they'll laugh at you, or for Eskom for that matter. But the point is just, for all this shit happening, there are some very smart people doing great work. We need more of them. So just keep that in mind.
Absolutely. Johan, this question is directed at you because for the audience sake, I always love hearing Johan's stories whenever he gets booked for an AI consultation with a company, or he sat in a boardroom full of people saying we need to implement AI. And something I want to ask you, Johan, is what are the biggest misconceptions that businesses have when implementing or thinking of implementing AI models using their data?
Colleen, firstly, there's two extremes. The one is it's dangerous. We can't use it. We're afraid of it. In what I call a post-ChatGPT world, which is now the last 3 years or so, the even more dangerous other side is let's just AI everything. I mean, we went to a conference. The boss said we should AI. We should have an AI strategy. And I hope this answers the question. I discourage my customers from having an AI strategy, because maybe Excel is all they need for their particular business goals. Have a business strategy that may or may not include technology. Of course, Copilot and ChatGPT and AI and data can add great benefit, but we are so blinded by the promise of AI, or what we think it is, and it is still limited in many ways, that we are aiming for the wrong things. I think organizations don't know what data they have. They almost, and it's also it's a human thing. Like if I'm the head of HR and you're the CEO and you say, give me an indication of all the data you have on our staff, knowing that I don't know what's happening, I will resist it and try and avoid it. So I think that's what happens. People don't understand this tech. They don't realize how it can help them. And it's just human nature to protect your turf, to keep your job, and let's just do it like we've always done it. And that's why you have to take people by the hand on the journey. The moment that HR managers start seeing with small little steps how it makes life better, interview scheduling is better, you can be better at identify candidates, your onboarding, your L&D, everything gets better slowly. They'll get excited. But problem with the word AI or robots or ChatGPT is, in most people, it immediately initiates a negative perception. That's where the human and the human behavior comes in again. This is a human conversation. It's not a data or AI conversation primarily, I think.
Yeah, and I think what happens is a lot of these... Oh, sorry, Amelia, please go ahead.
Oh no, sorry, Caroline. And I absolutely agree with Johan in his sentiments. Sometimes we just honestly need to start small. We need so that we can be able to pilot safely. Sometimes you look at big AI projects that fail dismally. And I think one other important aspect is the involvement of people where these solutions are concerned. I was actually reading a report, one of Gartner's report, where it states that 70% of AI projects fail to deliver on ROI. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that AI is some kind of a plug and play solution, where, as Johan rightfully rightfully mentioned, you implement and then all the problems
solved.
immediately disappears. It's really not about that. It's very important that we use AI to complement human decision making. We need to adopt AI as a strategic tool. Johan spoke a lot about strategy that involves, understanding its potential and also some of its limitations. So these misconceptions really are things that really have to be taken into consideration. Human oversight is very important, and looking at the business context. And what, if I can just bring this quickly, Caroline, what we've also noticed from our organization side is that many times we look at technology, and I mean there are great technologies. Whether you're talking IoT, whether you're talking drones, or whatever the case is. But the problem that we sometimes make is that we are quick to implement the technology, but without necessarily understanding what the problem is. What is our business processes currently? What is it that we are trying to solve? Do we need to re-engineer our business processes so that we can come up with a technology that is fit for purpose? So yeah, for me, really sprinkling AI or machine learning here and there, and watching and thinking that your business problems are going to vanish. I think it's the greatest misconception. I just thought I should add that to Johan's point. Thanks.
Such a good point. And I think what happens, Amelia, is a lot of these companies start with the how and not with the what. What is it that needs to be solved? What information do we have to solve it before we figure out the how? And I think and you mentioned a report. A lot of them read this report and they immediately want that same result, not thinking that to get to that report, that company probably had a 6 month or a 6 months to a year journey before they got to that outcome. Even with our business, where we've slowly but surely introduced AI into our decision making, it took us a whole academic year cycle to see the outcomes that worked and didn't work, and we're still busy making adjustments. Where a lot of companies want a solution within 3 months. Johan, I think you see that constantly within your consultations, because they underestimate how much training is needed. They underestimate the oversight that is taking place throughout the process. And they also completely underestimate the contextual data that needs to be fed into the model to get good results. And sometimes it takes trial and error before you realize, oh goodness, we need to start feeding it this, not this. And that comes down to the what. So Amelia, I think you covered that brilliantly.
If I can just quickly add, Colleen, look, if you do it right in time, AI will make life easier and it will bring down costs. But initially, it will make life very difficult and increase your cost immensely. The amount of change needed in your workforce is immense. The ways of working is going to change. I often ask clients that want to go on this AI journey, have you thought of what your workforce will look like in 5 years? What kind of upskilling do you need? And that is if people are what I call upskillable, and that's nothing to do with intellect. It is just, I've been capturing invoices for 30 years. I've got 5 years left for retirement. Don't teach me to code. I'm not going to do that or be an AI expert, But also, what kind of talent do you need to attract over the next 5 years? You probably need job roles that don't exist in your HR department at the moment. So I just think, and just to complement what both of you are saying, the beast that you are tackling when you say let's AI stuff is so much bigger than people think. It's worth doing it wisely and slowly, but to just say plug it in, let's start checking what the AI is spitting out, you underestimate human resistance and how costly it's going to be and how difficult it's going to be and how long it's going to take if you don't do it right.
Yes. And that's why we are having a conversation about data as well, not just AI, because if you can start, I want to say, fixing the information that you are getting in first and also organizing it a little bit better and just understanding it on a manual basis first, then using AI is going to be such a smooth ride. But I think a lot of people want to skip that planning part. And that comes back to project management. Everything has to go into the planning to have a good execution. And all of them just want to go to the execution. Johan, I want to ask you a question as well, and even Amelia, if you've experienced this, being in regular consultations with businesses wanting to optimize AI, what advice would you give to a mid-sized business that's afraid to adopt AI because they probably, you've heard this many times, they think their data isn't clean enough or they don't have enough data.
Yeah.
What is your advice on that?
Colleen, I work with some of our big banks. They have the same problem, although they've matured over time. But big companies also have this problem, big organizations. So I would help them to uncover. Firstly, we start with what they're trying to achieve, which is not a technology conversation. And then we map it back to what data do you already have, probably that you don't even know you have. And then what data would complement. So you're going to have to start harvesting that data with permission and with POPIA and regulation and the like. There is, look, again, if you're a mobile phone, if you're a high transactional company, you probably have a hell of a lot of data. But if you send one invoice a day, maybe you're a builder, for instance, building contractor. So you have only 4 or 5 or 6 invoices a month, but they're probably 5-6 million rand invoices a shot. So you don't have a lot of data. But where is your data? Is it on your laptop? Is it on a thumb drive? Is it somewhere on a cloud folder? And then let's bring it together. You already have it. Hopefully you have it ethically and legally. And then we map it back to the why. Because it doesn't help you start harvesting data that's not going to contribute to what you want to achieve as a business, you know? So it's a lot more common sense than tech and data and AI kind of stuff. And people are, again, blinded by these things. So what do you want to achieve? Which 2 or 3 levers will dramatically enhance your business and increase your revenue? Because, and this is an important thing I want to stress, that's why I always say the main owner, in my view, and I know people don't like it, and especially technical people, the main owner of an AI initiative, especially in a large corporate, is the chief financial officer. Because if it does not make an impact on your income statement and on your finances, then why are we doing it? Because the techies will want to AI everything, and we need them a hell of a lot. But if there's no financial aim to increase your market share, to reduce your churn, understand your competitors, understand your clients better, you don't need AI. You probably only need Excel. And I know I go back to Excel because if you just analyze the data in Excel, if you're a builder with 3 clients a month. So yeah, I hope that answers the question. There's a good chance you have more data than you know. It's hidden on your WhatsApps. It's hidden on your emails. There are ways to extract it and make meaning from it. But you should not fear not having enough data. And it's also good to know what data will help you that you don't currently have, to add that to your customer interactions.
Yeah, that's by sorting out your, what's the word that we sometimes use, your criteria. What is the main criteria that you truly need to help you make decision? And maybe you have much more than that, but you can just start at least with those. But I want to read something that Clayton in our chat said. One issue I see with data in businesses is data silos. Data scattered across departments, systems, or tools that don't communicate with each other. And Johan, I'm sure you see this all the time.
All the time. And I think, Amelia, I'd love to hear what you said, because you alluded to it earlier. And sometimes it is selfish. It's just my data, I want to hold on to it. Sometimes it's just we are in a structure where we just don't really work together. And I don't even know you have that data, so I can't even ask you for it. This, Clayton, what you've just said is one of the biggest problems in this whole conversation. And again, it goes to human nature. I hold on to what I have. I want to feel important. We don't share the data, but I would assume, like Amelia, in a large organization managing a large city, there can be nefarious players saying this is my data, but it's also that we just even don't know what our various teams have. It's such a good comment. I'm sure you see it. You've alluded to it.
Yes, I did allude to that earlier on. We see a lot of that, and it becomes difficult for us to be able to make informed decisions. And hence I said that as a city, we have got a whole lot of data. Each and every department, in fact, collects that particular data. So it really, really becomes difficult. I think the one important thing, Caroline, Johan, and the team is, I think AI literacy is also very critical. Could it be that, some of our employees are not, and also the culture change, plays quite a pivotal role, just for us to be able to shift, the minds of our colleagues. So yeah, it's the biggest problem that we are trying to deal with. I mean, we came up with one of the solutions here, and for us just to get some of the data sets from other departments, it has become a biggest hassle. So it's one thing that really needs to be looked at. But hence I'm saying that it's important just to inculcate that culture, and AI literacy. It's also very pivotal.
I kind of want to ask you a very direct question, Amelia. And again, this could have subjective answers. But with AI evolving so fast, and we know this is happening at the speed of light, by the time people analyze their surveys, there's already a new AI solution or a new AI tool, especially if they didn't use AI previously. With AI evolving so fast, is it more important for companies to focus on building a data culture or learning how to use AI? What would you say?
I think data culture, Arlene, is very, very important. It's important for us to inculcate that just besides, AI itself, and it's something that we have been trying to do. I think the unfortunate part that I should mention is some of our colleagues, we call them TBTs. I don't know if you know what that means. Be born before technology, BBTs, by the way. So it's really important for us to inculcate that culture. And the other thing that I thought is very important, Caroline, is the relearning, the reskilling as well, just where AI is concerned, so that we do not become laggards. I mean, countries out there are way ahead when it comes to AI implementation, development, and deployment thereof. But if ever you have got, workforce that is not in par of what is happening, then it really becomes difficult.
I think you answered it perfectly, and I want to give an example. Just from what I've seen in my experience in Johan, I'm sure you've got hundreds of examples, but I'm familiar with a Johannesburg-based legal firm that ran ChatGPT workshops for their attorneys, but they saw limited long-term benefit. And it wasn't until they implemented regular data-driven decision-making and data analysis just on a manual basis, like for instance, case success analytics, that their AI tools then became successful. So what came first? The data. So I think I'm of the subjective opinion that data culture is very important before you start again implementing technology like AI. But speed is not on your side, and I think that's the other matter. Johan, just based on your talks and experience with companies, what is your opinion on this?
Yeah, I think for me, and I agree with both of you. Again, out of the possible, if we don't know what value AI can give or data can give us responsibly, we wouldn't even know to use it. I mean, I do a lot of training these days around Copilot, especially, and one of the biggest issues people have with their day-to-day work is summarizing the hundreds of emails every day, but in particularly keeping up with all the meetings. And there are various tools doing it, but what I like about Copilot in the Microsoft family is the summarization of the meeting, because for me, 2 meetings later, I've already forgotten what I said I'm going to do 2 meetings back. But also now I'm helping clients, and we use certain automation tools as well to say you have a weekly meeting with a customer or a team, to automatically store that transcript in a SharePoint folder so that that transcript lives in the context of all the conversations we're having with that industry, that client, etc., and then to look at trends. Now, that is what a data culture should do. Now, if I don't know how I can benefit from that data, I won't have the discipline of making sure it's transcribed and we save it correctly, etc. So people should not see it as a task or something that's going to take up their time and waste their time. Again, back to slowly implementing it. Once you see how things like reporting, which we all hate, following up on meetings, emails, oh my word, it's the pain of our lives. Once that is becoming easier through AI, people jump on the bandwagon and they use it correctly. So it's a using. And the other thing is we call it democratization of technology, which means, in the past, technology was very isolated in the technology team or in experts. And now it is big, and that's still important. But now the ability to use this tool as a non-technical person, you might not even know how to switch on your laptop yet, but with a little bit of training, you can do wonders with your meeting notes and stuff. So it's almost so that the tech team and the leadership should set the boundaries and the guardrails to make sure it's done right. You don't lose IP, etc. But also within those guardrails to train people and set them free, because they are going to go mole to use this stuff once they see what it can do for them.
And I think if I can make a comment, and this is just on my personal experience, but also some of my colleagues, if you tend to be fond of using Excel, so before ChatGPT became a thing, I have always been fond of using Excel, creating pivot tables, analyzing data using Excel. It became even a hobby. And I hope I'm guessing correctly, but I'm thinking some of our audience members who believe that AI comes first tend to be people who like analyzing data. It's people who've been doing it before it was cool to do it. So when ChatGPT came, I was ready. I thought, this is amazing. I really love analyzing data myself manually. This is just going to make it faster. So in my world, AI should come first, because in my experience, I'm already analyzing data. But what I need to consider is the person next to me does not think that way, hates Excel, hates admin, hates numbers. And I think that's where the challenge comes in on what comes first, because I see two of our people have said that they believe the AI awareness should come first. And I don't think anyone's wrong. I don't think there's a wrong and a right. I think it has to do with what is the general culture of your business. If you're a finance business, your focus is probably more numbers. You are more likely to implement AI a little bit faster. But if you're a survey analysis, human behavior focused, customer behavior focused business, it's kind of important to look at your data first. But again, that's my personal opinion. It's not fact. I think there's not a lot of case studies available yet to determine the perfect outcome. But for me, who used to love doing pivot tables, I immediately adopted AI to analyze my data. If someone who didn't do that prior might not look at it the same way. So that's just a comment from my side. I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, no, but if I could quickly say, you're right. Look, both are almost equally important, because it's like brothers and sisters in a business, if you would.
Yes.
But so the AI awareness, I mean, there's a huge need in businesses at the moment for it. But if people don't know what data they need and what they can do with the data, even just in Excel, they won't begin to start understanding what AI can do for it. Now, the problem is, and that comes back to the prompting thing we did, Colleen, is the biggest problem people have with these tools is we don't always know what to ask it, because we don't know what it can do.
Yes.
And where prompting techniques comes in is we don't know how to ask it. And I did some training with a large investment firm yesterday around Copilot. They've now gone Copilot wall to wall. And they've already seen the benefits. But what I picked up with people is, because we linked it to the various SharePoint folders and we looked at analyzing stuff and automatically creating proposals and stuff, but to articulate, which is a word I often talk about, to articulate, this is what I want you to do, Copilot, is where people are struggling. And that's maybe where the AI awareness comes in. I think, and that's what I'm trying to do with my son, is rather than teaching him coding, I'm trying to teach him articulation in AI, which is prompting, and not to be lazy, to prompt and reprompt until you get what you need. But people struggle because we explain the symptoms to the AI like we do to a contact center, but we don't explain the reasons for the symptoms. So I just think, and I want to encourage everyone here, and I know this is a data-focused conversation, but experiment with prompting. Don't be lazy. Write a 4 or 5 paragraph prompt if it's going to work. And it's a real thing that saved my life. I started building prompting libraries on my own SharePoint folder. I know if I want to do this kind of thing, these 2 pages of prompts have helped in the past. I might have to tweak it a little bit rather than refiguring out. So just to give you an example, and I don't want to go on too long. So when writing articles or white papers or the like, It needs to be in British English. I don't want bullet points. I want section headings. Each paragraph must be at least 200 words long. I need you to cite references in Harvard style, in text and at the end, etc., etc. Now, it doesn't help I use AI and I need to refigure every time what did I prompt. So practice prompting, but use the prompts as a team that works. And that's what I also did yesterday is the team is now discovering the client what prompts are working for them, but they're not sharing it with each other. So I said, combine those prompts in a prompting library, change it every week if you need to, because it saves you time. You don't want to automate stuff and then spend 5 hours figuring out the prompt. And this is back to the data culture and the AI literacy, I think.
Yeah. I think as we are nearing the last 30 minutes of our session, and for the audience, we try to always be fair and finish up in time. I want to ask both Amelia and Johan, in terms of data and AI, the next thought that I think a lot of people raise and comes up is, what about security? Obviously, data can be sensitive. We obviously have the POPIA Act to think about. And then the question is, up to what extent can you feed the data into AI that it's still secure and safe? And does it depend on the type of AI tool you use? For instance, I'm always comparing the open model ChatGPT with the paid for Microsoft Copilot that is very built into your enterprise. So maybe if we can just unlock that question, Amelia, you especially deal with sensitive data as well. How do you practice safe data analysis using AI?
Caroline, sorry, I think I missed a bit of your question. You're asking, I heard data analysis, sorry about that.
No, I was saying when it comes to using data and AI, we obviously have to consider security and we have to consider POPI, which is something I'm sure you deal with on a daily. And one thing that needs to be considered is the type of AI tool you use. Is it a secure tool? And the limits of the data you feed it so that you don't break any rules. Obviously, you use data and AI consistently. What is your safe practices when it comes to data analysis and AI?
Yeah, I think that is a great question. I always say that AI doesn't operate in a vacuum. It operates within people's lives, and that means that there are laws, there are rights, and the accountability really matter in that regard. So as in our organization, yes, POPIA is very important as it regulates, how personal data is being, how we collect it, how we store it, and how we use it. And we are also looking into GDPR, yes, and just from a broader compliance perspective. And what we've also looked into, and this also actually formed part of my master's study as I majored in AI governance, the EU AI Act. I think as in our organization, we just thought that there are some important aspects that we could tap into as the first major law that regulated AI itself. So, I mean, if we use AI as the city, like for example, for smart surveillance or license plate recognition, which actually that if you look at it, it may qualify as a high risk AI under the EU AI law. So that means that it's very, very critical to ensure that there is transparency. So how the system works, it's very important. And we also need to ensure that, we are able to explain some of our the data that we use or the models that we are deploying. And we also look into the issue of fairness as well, that we spoke a lot earlier about biases, that there is actually no discrimination. That our people can actually trust some of these solutions that we are trying to deploy. So I think that AI must be auditable. We must also make it to become inclusive, and the human-centeredness of it all. It's very, very important. And in fact, we had a meeting with CIO where I was asking them pertinent questions to say, we really need to ensure that we comply, that regulations form a critical part of what we are doing. And we are advancing this argument as well to say it's also upon your Microsoft, your SAPs, to also ensure that there's compliance from their side, because as the tech companies, you need to ensure that regulations are complied with. I hope I'm answering your question.
Yes. Johan, what is your advice to companies asking that specific question? How do we practice safe data analysis using AI?
Yes. Look, firstly, don't be cowboys and allow people to just use every tool in the world, especially not buying every tool in the world, because that licensing cost quickly builds up. And you probably already have tools that can do some of that work. And this is such an important part of our conversation, everyone. I use, so often on my screen, I've got ChatGPT paid for, I've got Perplexity, which is amazing for research. I use DeepSeek a lot. It's probably the best reasoning model. And people say, would you want to send your data to China? No, but I also don't want to send it to Silicon Valley either. So which means I use it very specifically. It's not any confidential information about myself or clients, etc. It's about trends, it's research. But then, and I know I speak about Copilot a lot, there are other tools. You need a ring-fenced system that keeps your data in your organization, and that the external model is not trained on your data. But the other thing that's important is that your Active Directory or your access levels are set up correctly. So for instance, if I work in an organization and I put in a prompt in Copilot that needs to access our latest board meeting or our financial statement, and this is a private company, it should block me from accessing that data for my prompt. So the right access levels. But then it's also, look, we know the most breaches happen through human error. I was sitting on the Gautrain last week, and a guy from one of the big consulting firms was sitting next to me with his laptop. And I was on the way to a bank who's my client, and he was on the way to the same bank. That's a different kind of business, but he was busy building his proposal, his competitor analysis. Next to me on the train, I could see everything. I can't fix that problem. Things like cleaning the whiteboard after a meeting. It's also protecting privacy information. Documents on desks, thumbnails being lost. So, and that's where that AI awareness, that training, and that discipline comes in. And remember, people don't learn things immediately or once. It's a constant training exercise, scenario-based training. And the one example I want to use, I always use this. Before I started working for myself, I was working for a big audit firm. And they had these practices for phishing attacks. Now, a phishing attack is obviously, when you get an email from a fake organization, you click on it and it hacks your stuff. But we were waiting for the release of our annual reviews. It's 400,000 people globally. On one day, whether you're going to get an increase or a bonus or a new role would be released. And on that day, they sent us a phishing attack internally. It was a practice. The email looked exactly like the branding, etc. And no one did the mouse over the link to see, is it actually that firm link? And I remember we had a 90% fail rate. And it's social engineering. They caught us on the right day with the right message. And again, that's the constant common sense training around these things. But just to quickly circle back, use tools that are safe. Train people to be responsible. There are some things in your business that people can use ChatGPT for or DeepSeek. But they are internal, confidential, IP-related things. That's not just because of regulation or even potential, reputational loss. It is a real business initiative that data should not be accessed by the wrong people. These tools are amazing, and it comes back to that data and security strategy. You have to think around it. The challenge here is the balance between setting your people free to fly and do it and making sure it's safe and not just inhibiting them. And for every business and industry, it is different, but you have to think through it.
I think it comes down to basics again, Johan. Like you said, the guy working on his laptop on the train is putting the company at the same risk as the guy sharing data on AI. It comes down to basics and principles of security as well, I believe. From C2's perspective, for what it's worth to our audience, we do encourage ChatGPT because it is a free tool. There are great solutions for more superficial questions and more, assistance with your emails and stuff like that. But we've also implemented Microsoft Copilot, which has more security in terms of your plug-in apps. But as Johan said, the data gets sent to Silicon Valley in that sense, because that's where Microsoft is based. Point is, are we teaching our staff to use it securely, safely, and wisely? Do we have good case studies and examples? Same as you have to with cybersecurity as well. But I think both of you gave great summaries of how it can be practiced safely. I think we are on the last 15 minutes. I normally use this time to just refer to any opportunities and events that we have running at CTU. But before I do so, Johan or Amelia, do you want to contribute anything else before we conclude our session today?
The rose before the thorns in the bush.
So from my side, Caroline, I think we had a great discussion just with regards to data being the currency. So for me, I think what I want to just say is that AI is really not magic. We can't view it as a mirror. It reflects the data. It sort of reflects the values as well that we feed into it. And for me, it's very critical that if we want AI to help us build, smart government entities, public entities, private, better governments, and smarter cities, and even more ethical businesses, really, we need to start with clean data. We need to start with data wrangling, where we clean, we normalize it, and we do all these things. We need to start with clear goals. We also need to ethical practices. They need to be embedded just from the get-go, and we also need to do the inclusive design. So as future professionals, I think whether you're in IT or whether you are in governance, whether you are in law or whether you are in strategy, our role is really not to just use AI, but it's very important for us as professionals to also shape it. So it's upon all of us, really. And the issue of, reskilling and upskilling and relearning, AI literacy, very, very critical. So really, we need to work towards shaping what we want. I think that's just my last input.
Absolutely. And thank you so much. I also want to say thank you for your contribution to the city of Tshwane. And it's great to know that the city is in such good hands as well. And I'm sure everyone in the audience and us as well is quite thankful for that. If I can, to the audience, for what it's worth, CTU Training Solutions is a training company. We do specialize in technical training specifically. And as you can imagine, we're very AI focused. I want to give you 2 resources that you are welcome to explore. The first resource is just access to current AI courses from Microsoft, from our Microsoft vendor, that are available on discount until the end of this month. Feel free to check them out. There are end user courses, which is more basic. End user meaning someone who is just using it for more business related purposes. And then we've got technical user as well, which is more for your technical IT based professionals. So please have a look at that. And then there's also some free AI training that you can look forward to, hosted by the LLPA. CTU is the South African representative of the LLPA group of learning partners. I've also shared that resource. There's a lot from the 4th to the 5th of June. There will be several free online AI sessions available. I can just read a few of the topics. One is an AI crash course. What is AI? What is ML? Types of learning and basic concepts. Very basic, and it is only an hour session. And I can just another one. Example could here be building intelligence, creating a Gen AI model from scratch, if you're more on the technical side. And that's also just an hour session. So go pick your sessions. They are free. They are presented by top tier AI specialists. So please feel free to go attend them. CTU does promote it to the South African audience. So please feel free to make use of these resources and reach out to us anytime. I just want to also thank Johan again for joining us for our AI Masterclasses, as you always do. And Amelia, you've definitely been one of our most valuable contributors to our conversations, and we really appreciate your time and your input on this conversation.
Thank you, Colleen. Can I quickly say something before we jump off? You just touched on because I wanted to say, hopefully, two things. People picked up golden nuggets they can take back to their businesses to ask questions. But
Yes.
the importance of proper, constant training for everyone, security people, receptionists, and as you go up the value chain, is so important. This is not an IT department conversation per se. Every person in your business, to some extent or another, needs to be constantly upskilled. And organizations like CTU offer that. Be careful who you pick. There's a lot of fly-by-night trainers who have no experience in this field. Pick the right people with the right credentials. And that's why I always add my little personal brand to CTU, Colleen, because it's absolutely worthwhile working with you guys. This is not plugging. This is just my opinion. So I encourage you, look at these links and work with Colleen and her team. Thank you. And Amelia, you were fantastic, but I had no doubt you wouldn't be. You're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Johan. Much appreciated. Thanks, Carly.
Thank you, everyone. I also want to say thank you to our brilliant audience. Thank you to everyone who's contributed to the conversation. We had some brilliant statements, brilliant questions. We couldn't have asked for more. So thank you to each and every one of you. And we appreciate your time today, because we know you're all busy, and that's why we're going to win you 10 minutes of your day as well. Please feel free to use the links. Go attend as many AI sessions as you can. The more you know, the better. And we hope that you're going to attend any of our future AI Masterclasses as well. So I'm just going to say thank you to our audience. I'm going to stick around for just a few minutes, just in case there are any specific questions related to the AI festivals. But other than that, please enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. We appreciate your attendance.